Hi, guys. This is Crystal Benford, founder of Zeely Creative, and today is our third podcast, and we are going to talk about confusion about branding that can ruin you. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Okay, so have you ever, and I'm going to ask this question, have you ever thought to yourself, branding doesn't really matter, that it's only about the product or service that you give? Have you ever thought that, or have you ever heard someone say that? I think that as entrepreneurs or people starting businesses, I think we try to tell ourselves that because we're trying to convince ourselves that branding doesn't matter. That all we need to do is just put that product or service out there, and then that's it. We don't have to do anything else, and then people will come along. Or I'll give another scenario. Have you ever seen someone with a phenomenal idea that they've put into something tangible to sell or into a service, but no one really takes them serious when they try to market it? I have seen that. Not only have I seen that, I think I've been there. Let's be honest. I think I have been there. Actually, I've seen both situations. I've seen people where they try to say that branding doesn't matter, and I've seen people where they tried to start a business without branding. And it can be an utter fail. But here's the deal. We think as creators, and if you are running a business, no matter what it is, you have created something that you see can be a help to people, that it can solve a problem. So when we create something, for us, it's a great idea. And we just want to go out there and just put it out there. And then we think because we put it out there that people will flock to us like bees to honey. But listen, unfortunately, it does not work like that. I am a witness. It does not work like that. And I think probably a lot of you that are listening probably also knows that it doesn't work like that. But before we go on, just in case you missed last week's podcast about getting over your fear to start a business, that's what we talked about, I would say listen into that first, because that's going to catapult you into the business mindset and get you past those fears that has been keeping you from starting a business. So I would say listen to that. If you haven't, I'm going to put a link in the description, so no worries. But if you already have, I would say continue to listen on to this one. But here, after you finish putting that wonderful idea that we talked about, you having from the last podcast, after you put that wonderful idea into something tangible that's ready to go, or a service, if that's what you do, this podcast is going to help you. It's going to be the next step. I'm telling you, the next step. So definitely listen on. And I want you to have a strong start in your business. And I don't want you to ruin yourself by thinking that branding doesn't matter in your business. There are so many misconceptions that people starting businesses have about branding, and we want to literally squash that. We want to squash that starting today. So here are some of the causes of confusion, some of the misconceptions that cause confusion about branding that can absolutely ruin you and ruin your business before you get up and started. Number one, I've heard people say, and I don't know if you have too, that I don't need a brand. I've heard people say that. I don't need a brand. I think most people think branding is hype. It's not something real that can really affect them or their bottom line. But the truth is, it can majorly, do you hear what I say? It can majorly impact your business, especially if you are just getting started. People need to know who you are. And usually they see before they buy. So you know what, I like to look at it like this. I'm just going to talk about right now, and I'm going to use this as an example, the visual element of branding. Think of it as food. Now, my mother and my grandmother can cook. Do you hear me? And they taught me how to cook. But one of the things that I remember that they reiterated all the time was that visual presentation, that people eat with their eyes before they actually eat. So think of it put yourself in your shoes. Even if you don't cook, put yourself in your shoes. If you went into a new restaurant, one that you've never heard of. You didn't get a recommendation. You just decided, I want to be bold. The menu doesn't look too shabby. I order some off the menu and I'll try something. Who knows? It could be, I don't know. It could be a gym for all I know. It could be a gym that nobody knows about, and I could be the first one to find out about it. So then you order off of the menu and you wait as your server brings your food. So here's your server. They're coming. They're looking happy and proud that they got service. And they set the plate down before you. And when they set the plate down before you, what is on your plate looks like something that is not from this world. It looks like something that has come out of Marvel's or DC Comics that one of the aliens eat. What do you do? What do you do? If someone puts a plate like that in front of you, what do? Do you dive in? No, absolutely not. At least I know I wouldn't now. I don't know how bold you are, but I would not dive in at all. Well, guess what? That's the same with branding. And like I said, I'm just touching on the visual aspect of branding for this particular example. That's the same as branding. Give people a great first impression. Because like we all know, you cannot redo a first impression. Not one, but give them a great first impression. Okay? You don't want to give them an impression that gives them warning signs where they don't want to go past the front door. You know, that door, right, the hypothetical door that stands in between you, in between them and your profits. You don't want to give them a warning signs. You want everything about your branding to be welcoming, everything about your branding. You want them to buy into it. Number 2 is another misconception, another thing that causes confusion about branding that can ruin you. A brand is just a logo. Now, in number 1, I gave you an example that uses the visual element, okay, which is your logo. You know, and I'm going to give you a great example here. You know that cool looking M you see every time you go into a city. Sometimes in certain cities, you'll see it maybe a couple of miles away before you see another one. Come on. I know you know what that is. That M that makes millions, if not billions of revenue a year. Well, just in case you haven't guessed it, I'm going to tell you, it's McDonald's. Guess what? That logo is worth nothing. Those double arches are worth nothing by itself. I know that's hard to take in. And I know you're saying, but Crystal, but that's McDonald's. Everybody know what McDonald's is. I understand that everybody knows what McDonald's is. But guess what? By itself, it's worth nothing. Take that in. It's worth nothing. What makes those double arches important is what they represent. That's right. When you see those double arches, immediately, either a few things are going to happen. Either you're going to get hungry, you're going to think about the burger, the fry, the shake, the apple pie, the cherry pie. You're going to think about something edible when you see those arches. It immediately takes you to a place of food. Immediately takes your mind to a place of food. Not only just food, but somewhere that you can go and eat quickly. You can get your food quickly without having to sit down, pay a tip to a waitress, wait for them to go in the back and cook it, bring it to you. Then you got to, all this rigmarole. It's what it represents that makes it so popular. So really the logo by itself is nothing. Your logo is just an identifier of your brand. That's all a logo is. So when people see it, it reminds them of you. But this is after you have established your product and service. After you established your story, your target market, your business goals, and what you represent. Believe it or not, your logo is the last thing that you usually go over, or that we usually go over as branding designers and brand strategists. That's the last thing that we go over, because it's not the most important thing in the brand. All those things that I listed, your service, your story, your target market, your business goals, all that stuff is incorporated into your brand. So see, when you want to make sure that you identify those areas first, so that when the logo design comes about, when your logo design is created for you, then it represents all those elements. So when people see the logo that we create for you, then guess what? It takes them immediately back. It gives them a feeling, just like that feeling you have when you see the McDonald arches. It gives them that feeling of what you are, who you are, what you represent, the type of customer service you get. You understand? So that's something that you want to look into. Or not look into, but that's something that you want to take into consideration. Another thing that causes confusion about branding is number 3. Branding doesn't make money. It is amazing how many people believe this. Or they think it only makes money for the brand strategists and the design agencies that are creating the brands. But here's another truth. In a way, you're partly right. And the reason why I say you're partly right is because there's kind of a twofold answer to this particular thing. But here's the difference. You're partly right, but here's the difference. Your brand could be the deciding factor to where a customer spends their money, depending on the story, look, feel, and strategy that comes with branding, along with what you sell. I'll say that again. Your brand, if done right, could, or even wrong, your brand could be the deciding factor to where a customer spends their money, depending on the story, that's your story, the feel and strategy that comes with branding for you, along with what you sell. So in a way, it can bring you money. You don't want something as simple as, well, it's not really simple, but you don't want something like branding to keep you, like bad branding, okay, to keep you from potential clients. You don't want that. I know that. Now, I always like to say, think about it on your side. Who would you sow into, or not necessarily sow into, but who would you buy from? Would you buy from someone that maybe they're in a more shabby establishment? Or would you buy in someone where it looks like everything is organized? Would you go into a store where it's total confusion and the fruit looks bad and old? Or would you go into another store where everything looks well kept, maintained, up to date? Things aren't expired. Those are some visual elements I'm talking about, but you want to look at it like that. You want to look at it like, who would you buy from? If it were you and someone else, who would you buy from? What does your brand look like? How do people feel when they're looking at your branding? How do they feel? What is your story? What is the strategy? Do you have a strategy? All that comes along with branding. Okay, now we are going to number 4, our final thing for this particular episode. Here's one thing I have heard people say. Once I'm branded, I can't change it. And honestly, I'm going to tell you this. This was something that I believed in the past, like well in the past. Once I'm branded, I can't change it. This is so untrue, so untrue. Businesses change their branding all the time, especially as they grow. And I will tell you a story about me. When I first started Zeely Creative, if you heard a future or a past podcast, I remember branding myself kind of after the top branding companies and the top design agencies. And it just was not me. It just was not me. So guess what I did? I said, this is not me. It does not represent it does not cater to or gravitate to the market that I want to serve, the type of client I want to serve, the type of people that I want to serve. It just doesn't work for me. So guess what I did? I rebranded, especially my logo. I rebranded, and we're in the finishing touches of finishing up the rebranding and the strategy and everything right now for Zeely Creative. But I tell you, it's not too late to rebrand. It's not too late to rebrand. Look at the major corporations. They rebrand all the time. Now, I know you're thinking about the major corporations, that they have millions of dollars to change their branding every several years, but that does not have to be the case for you. If you do things right first, in the beginning, the first time, then you won't have to do it again in the future unless you choose to. You go further down the line, you go years down the road, and you're raking in all this money because your business is doing so well, then you can go and do a facelift. That's what Microsoft does. That's what Apple does. That's what some of those other large major corporations, they give themselves facelifts, their brands facelift all the time because they're ever evolving. They're growing. They're learning more about their clientele. They're learning more about their target audience and their ideal clients. So you can do that. You can do it every now and again, but you don't want to have to totally reface your business. Especially if you're already a business. You don't want to have to totally reface, because that can cost you unnecessary money to start over from scratch. Okay, so those are your steps. So what did we learn? We learned that you do need a brand, even though some people say you don't need a brand. That was number one. Number two was a brand is just a logo. We understand that that's a misconception about branding. It's not just a logo. It's strategy. It's identifying your target market. It's telling your story and incorporating that into everything, making sure you're cohesive visually as well as aesthetically across all platforms, social media, website, and everything. Number three, branding doesn't make money. Well, we know that this is a twofold answer. By itself, without you, without anything, it doesn't make money. But if it's done right, it does make money. And the reason why I say if it's done right, it does make money, because it can be the deciding factor to where a customer spends their money. If they're going to spend it with you because you already created this phenomenal brand strategy, you already created this phenomenal brand aesthetic, are they going to spend it with you, or are they going to go to your competitor? And number four, once I'm branded, can I change it? Of course you can. You can change it, but make sure you do it right the first time. And if you are already a company, if you've already established a logo and it's not working for you, it's not helping bring that particular client in that particular type of client in that you want, then rebrand. It's okay to rebrand. It's all right. And I would say it's an investment. It definitely is an investment. So guess what? Branding isn't so bad, right? It's really not so bad. If done right, it can be an investment that could save you money and time ahead. Okay? Realize how your brand's not only a beauty factor, but if it's done right, a well-oiled machine that can get you on the road to the happy town of business. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast about confusion about branding that can ruin you. I don't want you to be ruined. I want you to put your best foot forward. I want every door that is supposed to be open for you to be open. And those doors, I mean opportunities. That's what I mean. So we want to make sure that we do things right, that we do things a good way. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast. So until next time, I would love, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also check out Zeely Creative, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. And I cannot wait to hear, leave it in the comments, I cannot wait to hear about how some misconceptions have been erased for you concerning branding and what you are branding and what you are going to do to build your brand so that you can start living that business life, that profitable life, like I know you want to. Have a good one, guys.